When you first disappear, the very first thing that goes through her mind isn't sadness or regret, it's shock, covered by ego. She won't let herself feel the weight of your absence right away because her pride steps in to shield her. In those early days, she tells herself stories. She convinces herself you'll be back. She tells herself that you're just playing a game, that your silence is temporary, and that you'll eventually cave because in her mind, you've always been the one to reach out, to fix things, or to fight for the connection. That sense of control is what her ego leans on. It tells her he won't last. He'll break the silence. He'll come chasing like before. And for a short while, she believes it. But the truth is, underneath that surface level confidence, shock is creeping in. She might not admit it to herself or to anyone else, but she feels something is different this time. Silence has a way of unsettling people because it takes away their usual point of control. When you used to respond, explain yourself, or argue, she could feed her ego with that. She could tell herself she mattered more because she was able to pull a reaction out of you. Now with silence, she doesn't get that same validation. That absence of energy forces her to wrestle with her own thoughts instead of focusing on your words. And that's where the discomfort begins. In those first days, denial is her shield. She'll act as if it doesn't bother her. She may even tell her friends or herself, good, he's gone. I don't need him. I can do better. That's ego talking, not the heart. Because the heart isn't that quick to dismiss. The heart lingers. The heart notices the sudden emptiness, the change in her routine, the lack of attention she may have taken for granted. But instead of facing those feelings, she hides behind denial. It's a natural human reaction to loss. We deny it before we begin to accept it. So in those early days, she distracts herself. She scrolls through her phone more. She spends time with friends, maybe even posts things to social media to prove she's happy without you. It's all an attempt to convince herself and the world that your disappearance means nothing. But if she has to try that hard to prove it, it's because deep down she feels it. Your silence is echoing in the background, and the more she tries to drown it out, the more it lingers in her mind. This is where her ego and her heart start to conflict. Ego says, don't miss him, he'll come back. Heart says, why hasn't he called? Why hasn't he texted? Doesn't he care? That back and forth creates tension inside her. In the past, you might have relieved that tension by breaking the silence, by checking in, or by explaining yourself. But now, you don't. Now she's left with nothing but the questions swirling in her own mind, and the longer she sits with them, the stronger they become. It's important to understand how this stage works because this is when she's most resistant to feeling the truth. The denial is thick and the pride is strong. She doesn't want to admit, even to herself, that she notices your absence. So she fights it with stubbornness. She might go out of her way to show you she doesn't care, maybe even reaching for another man's attention, not because she genuinely feels fulfilled by it, but because she's trying to mask the fact that your silence is affecting her more than she wants to admit. In this early period, her narrative is that she's still in control. She thinks your disappearance is temporary. She assumes you'll break first because that's the easier story for her ego to accept. Admitting that you might actually stay gone, that you might not return, forces her to face the reality that she may have lost something valuable, and she's not ready for that yet. But here's the key. That initial shock, that initial denial is only the beginning. Silence is patient. Silence doesn't rush. And the longer you hold it, the more those walls of denial start to crack. She can only tell herself stories for so long before reality sets in. And the reality is that you're not there anymore. She can't reach you emotionally. She can't pull you back with games or words. She can't count on the same responses she once used to feed her sense of control. That realization doesn't hit immediately. It unfolds slowly, day by day. And those first days after you disappear, she's still convincing herself she's fine. But deep inside, her subconscious already knows something's changed. She feels that shift, even if she won't acknowledge it. And that's the seed your silence plants, the awareness that she's no longer the center of your attention, no longer the one pulling the strings, no longer the one with all the power. That seed will grow in the days and weeks that follow, but it begins right here in that mix of shock, denial, and ego-driven confidence. Your disappearance disrupts her world in ways she doesn't want to admit at first, and though she'll resist those feelings with everything she has, silence has a way of outlasting pride. And that's why those first days matter, because they set the stage for everything that follows. That's the beginning of how her mind starts to shift once you disappear. As the days begin to stretch out after you've disappeared, something interesting happens inside her mind. At first, her ego told her that you'd be back, that your silence was temporary, that you couldn't possibly last without reaching out. But as those days pass and nothing comes from you, no call, no message, no sign, you've disrupted the pattern she was counting on. And that disruption stirs a very specific feeling in her: curiosity. Curiosity about why you're not doing what she expected. Curiosity about why you're not chasing, not proving, not explaining. That curiosity is small at first, but it grows stronger with each day of silence. She starts to wonder if she misjudged you. In her mind, she thought she knew how this story would play out. She believed you'd circle back, that you'd eventually fall into the same routine of giving her attention, apologizing, or trying to fix things. But your silence shatters that expectation, and when something happens outside of what we predict, it naturally creates restlessness. Her mind can't sit still when things don't go according to her narrative. She has to replay it, think it through, and try to find answers. That's where the curiosity slowly transforms into something heavier: restlessness. Restlessness shows up in little ways at first. Maybe she checks her phone more often than she admits. Maybe she glances at her messages half expecting to see your name pop up. She might tell herself she doesn't care, but the fact that she's checking shows that she does. That's the power of silence. It forces her to fill the empty space with her own thoughts. And the longer you hold that silence, the more those thoughts consume her. It's important to understand why this restlessness feels so strong. People crave patterns because patterns make us feel safe and in control. When she thought she had you figured out, she felt secure in her role. But when you break that pattern, when you don't react, when you don't give her the usual attention, it unsettles her. Suddenly, she doesn't know where she stands with you. She doesn't know how much of your energy she still holds, or if she holds any at all. And that uncertainty is uncomfortable. That's why she feels restless. And the longer your silence lasts, the more this restlessness pushes her into action. Not necessarily action toward you yet, but action within herself. She starts asking questions. Why hasn't he reached out? Is he talking to someone else? Does he not care anymore? Did he move on? These questions aren't easy for her to face because they challenge the belief that she was in control. They challenge the belief that you would always be available no matter how she treated you. And that's when silence, because more than just quiet, it becomes pressure. You see, silence is a mirror. It reflects back to people the reality of their choices. And right now, your silence is forcing her to sit with herself, to see that maybe she miscalculated, maybe she underestimated you, maybe she overestimated her hold on you. She won't say this out loud, but it gnaws at her inside. She feels the shift, and she doesn't like it. That's why she feels compelled to distract herself, to avoid sitting still too long, because when she does, the questions only grow louder. This stage is powerful because it's the first time she begins to lose her grip on the story she told herself at the start. At first, she thought she was safe, that you'd return. But now, every day you remain silent tells her a different story. Each day says, he doesn't need you. He's not waiting. He's moving forward without you. And even if you never say those words, your silence says them louder than any speech could. That's why she becomes restless. It's not just the absence of your voice, it's the presence of the meaning behind it. She might try little things to test your silence. Maybe she posts something designed to catch your eye. Maybe she reaches out with something casual, or maybe she tries to provoke a reaction directly. But if you remain silent, all she's left with is her own restlessness. That's when curiosity turns into something deeper, self-doubt. She starts to doubt her place in your life. She starts to doubt her control. And self-doubt is one of the most uncomfortable emotions for someone who once felt secure in being chased or wanted. This restlessness is not just about you. It's about her seeing a version of you she wasn't prepared for. A man who doesn't chase, a man who doesn't fold under silence, a man who can walk away and stay gone. That image is powerful because it forces her to reevaluate everything she thought she knew about you. Instead of seeing you as predictable, she sees you as unpredictable. Instead of seeing you as dependent, she sees you as independent. That shift completely changes how she views the situation, and it begins to erode the ego-driven confidence she started with. As the days go on, that restlessness doesn't fade, it grows, because silence isn't static. Silence builds momentum. It grows heavier, louder, and harder to ignore. And the more it builds, the more she's forced to wonder what's really going on inside your world. The irony is that she may not have thought much about you when you were always available, but the second you disappear and stay silent, you take up more space in her mind than ever before. That's how silence works. It makes people miss what they once overlooked. This is the stage where her thoughts begin to consume her because she doesn't have closure, she doesn't have answers, and she doesn't have control. And in the absence of those things, her curiosity becomes obsession. Your silence forces her into a restless loop of overthinking, and she can't stop wondering why you haven't broken. And that is exactly where you want her mind to be, because restlessness is the beginning of realization. By the time weeks have passed and your silence has remained unbroken, something inside her shifts in a much deeper way. The shock and denial of those first days are long gone, and the restlessness that followed has now taken root in her thoughts. Silence, when stretched out over time, forces a person to look inward, whether they want to or not. And that's when reflection begins. She starts replaying moments from the relationship in her mind. She thinks about the way you treated her, the things you did that made her feel valued, and the stability you brought into her life. These memories don't surface because she wants them to. They surface because your absence leaves her no choice but to confront them. At first, she compares you lightly, maybe without realizing it. She looks at the way others behave around her. Friends, men giving her attention, people she interacts with daily, and something feels different. You had a way of standing out, and now, in your silence, that difference becomes more obvious. She remembers how consistent you were, how reliable you were, or even how you had your own sense of direction and confidence. Now, when she encounters others, she notices that those qualities are rare. And in that comparison, she begins to see how much she underestimated what she had with you. The more she reflects, the clearer it becomes that your silence has created a contrast she can't ignore. The attention from other men doesn't feel the same. The conversations lack the depth she once had with you. The energy feels shallow compared to what you brought to the table. She might not admit it to anyone, but in her mind, she starts to realize that the void your disappearance created can't easily be filled. This isn't just about missing you. It's about realizing that the experience of you isn't something she can casually replace. Reflection is uncomfortable for her because it forces her to see where she might have gone wrong. She replays her own actions, moments where she dismissed you, took you for granted, or assumed you'd always be there. Silence gives her the space to face those memories, and in doing so, she begins to see the pattern from your perspective. For the first time, she might understand why you chose to disappear instead of chasing. She starts to connect the dots. Your silence isn't just about distance, it's about self-respect. And that realization stings because it highlights the gap between how you valued her and how she valued you. This stage is where comparison becomes more than just thought. It becomes an emotional weight. She feels it when she's alone, when she's scrolling through her phone, when she's surrounded by people, but still noticing that something feels off. She might even look back at old pictures or messages, not because she wants to torture herself, but because she's searching for something familiar, something stable, something real. And every time she reflects, she sees the same truth. She didn't realize what she had until it was gone. Silence has a unique way of amplifying the past. Instead of hearing your voice or being distracted by your presence, she's left with the echo of her own thoughts. And those thoughts keep pointing her back to you. The more she compares, the more she realizes that no one measures up, not because you were perfect, but because you brought something real that others can't replicate. And that's when the regret starts to settle in quietly, even if she resists acknowledging it fully. At this point, your silence has done what words could never do. It has forced her to stop and truly look at the difference between you and everyone else. It has created space for her to reflect in ways she never would have if you kept reaching out. And the longer it continues, the stronger that reflection becomes, until it's no longer just thought. It's a lingering awareness that won't leave her alone. And that is the moment when she starts realizing the cost of taking you for granted. Eventually, the silence becomes too loud to ignore. What began as shock, moved into restlessness, and evolved into reflection, now lands in a place she can't easily escape: regret. She begins to feel the weight of what she lost, and for the first time, she truly understands that your absence isn't temporary. It's permanent, unless she does something about it. This is the moment her ego starts to lose its grip, because no amount of pride can hide the simple truth that she misses what you brought into her life. Regret doesn't hit all at once. It sneaks in quietly, piece by piece. Maybe she hears a song that reminds her of you, or she passes a place where you used to spend time together, and suddenly the memories feel sharper, heavier. She realizes that the comfort and consistency you once gave her aren't present anymore, and when she looks at her current situation, whether she's alone or entertaining new people, she sees that it doesn't compare. That's when the regret grows stronger, because she recognizes that she traded something meaningful for something shallow, and now the man who gave her depth has gone silent. The realization of loss is where everything shifts. She no longer sees your silence as stubbornness or weakness. Instead, she begins to respect it. She starts to understand that it takes strength to disappear and not return, strength to value yourself enough to walk away, strength to let her feel the consequences of her own choices. That respect is born from the fact that she knows she couldn't have done the same if the roles were reversed. She would have broken the silence, she would have chased, she would have tried to hold on, and now, watching you hold steady, she feels the difference in power. This realization creates a new kind of longing. It's not just that she misses your presence, it's that she misses the version of herself she could only be around you. Your strength, your calm, your stability allowed her to feel secure, and now that security is gone. She may have thought she was fine without it in the beginning, but time has revealed that she wasn't, and that awareness hits hard because it's no longer about what you gave her, but about how empty things feel without it. Over time, the regret builds into a quiet acceptance. She underestimated you. She thought she could take you for granted and still have you waiting in the background. She thought you'd always return no matter how much she pushed, but your silence proved otherwise. And now, the very absence she dismissed at first has become the one thing she can't stop thinking about. This is why silence is so powerful. It doesn't just create space, it rewires how she sees you. It forces her to face herself, her choices, and her loss. And in that process, the respect she may have lost for you is rebuilt, not through words or explanations, but through the quiet strength of your decision to disappear. And that is why, in the end, her thoughts transform into regret and the realization that the man she once had, she may never get back.